What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Podcast. I hope you're having a fantastic weekend. As always, we have a big show and a lot to talk about here today, so we'll be getting right into it. You can follow me on Twitter at ASHMANNS, and you can follow the show's Twitter page at Kick-Ass_Podcast_. Again, we have a pretty big show. Today we're going to be focusing on, of course, Vince McMahon officially returning, Stephanie resigning, the whole Saudi Arabia drama, just everything that's kind of transpired in a little less than a week. And we just started this year. We're about 15 days through the month, and we already have pretty big news and a pretty big start to the year already, with Vince making his way back into WWE, Stephanie, like I said, on her way out, and then all the drama that really stemmed from the I guess bullshit stories is what I'm gonna call them. Maybe they're not bullshit. Maybe there was a little sliver of truth or merit that did warrant a lot of the tweets and stories that were generated from a lot of the reporters and journalists out there in our wrestling world. So we'll definitely be getting into all that. But as always, guys, I appreciate you for listening and downloading and streaming the show wherever you're doing so. And with that being said, we'll kind of start from the beginning and kind of catch up from there. Of course, it is official that Vince McMahon is officially back with WWE. He also brought back George Barrios and Michelle Wilson, who he fired about, I believe, 2 years ago. He brought them back with him as well. He released the press release himself, pretty much stating that what I spoke on in the previous show, that he had received bad advice, and then he officially made his return. It was reported on January 6th of this year. And in order for Vince, George, and Michelle to make their way back, about 3 other shareholders of the company had to be removed. Or not shareholders, well, they, I'm sure technically are. But members of the board had to be removed to obviously make space. Those individuals were Joe Ellen Lyons Dillon, I believe I got that name right, Jeffrey R. Speed, and Alan M. Wexler. That was included in the press release that WWE sent out on January 6th. They pretty much sent out an extensive release here, so I'm not going to go over everything in specific. I guess I will read a little bit of the beginning portion of it, just because it was released by Stephanie and it is kind of interesting, to say the least. So we'll kind of skim over the beginning portion of it. They started off by saying, quote, "Today we announced that the founder of WWE, Vince McMahon, will be returning to the board," said Chairwoman and co-CEO Stephanie McMahon, co-CEO Nick Khan, and Chief Content Officer Paul Levesque. "We also welcome back Michelle Wilson and George Barrios to our board of directors. Together, we look forward to exploring all strategic alternatives to maximize shareholder value," end quote. As Vince McMahon stated yesterday, "WWE has an exceptional management team in place, and I do not intend for my return to have any impact on their roles, duties, or responsibilities." And again, keep in mind what is then to happen a couple days later. "In connection with the change in the composition of the board of directors and in cooperation with Vince McMahon as majority shareholder, the company intends to undertake a review of its strategic alternatives, with the goal being to maximize value for all WWE shareholders. There is no assurance that this process will result in a transaction." And of course, the transaction most likely being a sale there. "Vince McMahon, in his capacity as controlling shareholder of the company, has removed Joe Ellen Lyons Dillon, Jeffrey R. Speed, and Alan M. Wexler from the board. Vince McMahon, George Barrios, and Michelle Wilson have been added to the board to fill the resulting vacancies." It wraps up saying, "The board currently consists of," and again, guys, keep in mind this report was from January 6th. The board consisted of, as of January 6th, Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, Nick Khan, Paul Levesque, Steve Koonin, Michelle McKenna, Steve Payman, George Barrios, and Michelle Wilson. Ignacy Lahoud and Manjit Singh have resigned from the board effective today. Again, hope I didn't butcher those names too bad. I apologize if I did. Then a couple days later, of course, which is kind of what prompted all hell to break loose essentially on Tuesday, was Stephanie McMahon announcing her resignation, and not just another leave of absence or a step down as co-CEO or chairwoman or anything like that. She straight up resigned. Again, we'll just gotta go off of here. As of January 10th, of course, of 2023, Stephanie McMahon announced her resignation from WWE. Stephanie had been serving as co-CEO and chairwoman of WWE's board of directors following her father, Vince McMahon's retirement from WWE on July 22nd, 2022. Stephanie sent out a tweet around 6:36 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday saying, it was a pretty lengthy tweet too, and it's well, we'll get into it. It's so bittersweet. She goes on to say, "Dear WWE Universe, about 8 months ago, I took a leave of absence, and within a few weeks, unexpectedly had the opportunity of a lifetime. I had the privilege to return as the co-CEO and chairwoman of the board of WWE. I cannot put into words how proud I am to have led what I consider to be the greatest company in the world, working alongside a remarkable leadership team and one of the strongest executives I have known in my co-CEO, Nick Khan. Our founder, Vince McMahon, has returned as executive chair and is leading an exciting process regarding strategic alternatives. And with Nick's leadership and Paul Triple H Levesque as chief content officer, I am confident WWE is in the perfect place to continue to provide unparalleled creative content and drive maximum value for shareholders. WWE is in such a strong position that I've decided to return to my leave and take it one step further with my official resignation. I look forward to cheering on WWE from the other side of the business, where I started when I was a little kid as a pure fan. I will always remain dedicated to WWE. I truly love our company, our employees, our superstars, capital S, and our fans. I am grateful to all of our partners. Thank you for everything. Then, now, forever, together, Steph." First, I love that she kind of signed it. It's just Steph, not Stephanie McMahon, not Stephanie McMahon Levesque. Rather, no title. Well, I guess she, doesn't have a title now, but just no nothing, just Steph. It's just kind of gave it a different feel, and a more personalized ending, and kind of felt like she actually did write it herself, and it actually did come from her, and it came from the heart. It wasn't something that came from a PR rep or anything like that. And even if it did, I just whatever. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but to me, I just liked that. But guys, we're just gonna kind of dig into this first. I think her tweet said a lot, rather, and I think a lot of what she didn't say and a lot of personal relationships that she left out of this and personal titles that she left out of it, I think is rather interesting as well. First, I like that she kind of took us on a journey of literally the past 8 months, with stating, about 8 months ago when she took her leave of absence, and then within weeks unexpectedly had the opportunity of a lifetime to come back and return as the co-CEO and chairwoman of the board. It's that in and of itself, that little snippet is just truly fascinating and such a whirlwind to think. I'm pretty confident I mentioned it on the show last week or whenever it was, that imagine you took a leave of absence from your employer, right? You're going on vacation, you're driving to a cabin or whatever with your partner, and you get a call. And not only do they want you to return, but they want you to return and be the co-CEO and chairwoman of the board of the company, I just can't even imagine being in that situation and the adjustment, right? And just everything that kind of trickles down from that personally and the business, and professionally. So again, it's just that in and of itself, no matter what happens in the future, will just still always be so fascinating to me. But of course, to go on and say how she can't put into words how proud she is to have led what she considers the greatest company in the world, and to work alongside with a remarkable leadership team and one of the strongest executives she has known in her co-CEO, Nick Khan. It's very interesting to me that she threw so much praise towards Nick Khan and didn't really throw praise towards anyone else. I mean, I think of course, because she didn't with Triple H either, right? With Paul Triple H Levesque, as she refers to him. Naturally, as the chief content officer. I think that's kind of just a given, right? I'm not really expecting much there, but in regards to Vince, she just follows with saying regarding Vince, our founder, Vince McMahon, and no personal attachment, no attachment at all, really, just our founder, which is factually accurate, you know what I mean? So she goes on to say, our founder, Vince McMahon, has returned as executive chair and is leading an exciting process regarding strategic alternatives. And this next, sentence, I think is says a lot. So, following that, she says, and with Nick's leadership and Paul Triple H Levesque as chief content officer, I am confident WWE is in the perfect place to continue to provide unparalleled creative content and drive maximum value for shareholders. And that stood out to me because, again, she goes on to promote Nick, which I think is very smart and says a lot about how she is as a businesswoman and personally as well, you know. When Stephanie was growing up, I'm sure she dreamt of this day, right? Obviously, it was the opportunity of a lifetime. It's literally a dream come true for her, I'd imagine. So, but during those dreams, I doubt she probably imagined she'd be sharing ownership or sole power of the company. Maybe if she did, it would be with Shane, right? Obviously, that, you know, would make the most sense. But to share with an outsider and someone being Nick Khan, who has only been in WWE since 2019 for about 3 years, maybe about 3.5 years at this point. It's just really fascinating to me. It's just truly remarkable. I can't wait to watch the documentary, which I hope happens in 10, 15 years from now. If it even takes that long, probably won't. Most likely won't. To just see how everything concludes. And it's kind of scary to think about. But with her, again, just touting Nick's leadership and calling this out specifically. She didn't end it with our founder, Vince McMahon, has returned and is leading the exciting process, blah, 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 and left it there, right? And didn't reference anyone else. She could have just left it with the Vince and then went on to say, I'm confident WWE is in the perfect place. She specifically added in Nick's leadership and Paul Triple H Levesque as chief content officer. And again, she specifically labeled Triple H's title, Chief Content Officer, because that's crucial, right? You can still have Triple H in the company, but if he's not in control of the content, if he's not in control of creative, if he's not in control and doing what he's doing right now, which we all are enjoying very much so, and is a complete, I'm not going to say a complete reset, obviously, that's very much overstating it, but it's a new direction, and it's the beginning of change, and it's the hope that we've all been longing for as fans. Without him there, in that specific role, I think that your excitement and your confidence, you being Stephanie, is not there. And I think with her specifically mentioning Nick's leadership and, again, Triple H as the chief content officer, that's how she'll be confident in WWE being in the perfect place to continue to provide unparalleled creative content and drive maximum value for shareholders. I think that's very specific, and she just so eloquently put that, and I love the kind of smoke and mirrors. And again, I may be reading way too much into any of this, but it's just kind of, as I read over it the second time, I was like, okay, like some of this kind of stands out to me for various reasons. And then she just kind of follows it up again, just solidifying that WWE is in a strong position, and kind of easing the blow that the remaining portion of her sentence would state that she's decided to return to her leave and take it one step further with an official resignation. And I think, again, it's very, very cool how she ended it by stating that she's going to cheer on WWE from the other side of the business, where she started it as a little kid, as a pure fan. And, of course, she's going to remain dedicated to WWE. She loves everyone. But I think her saying she's going to take it one step further with an official resignation, I think that's, obviously it's huge for various reasons, right? But I think the way she worded that and just the framing of that is just very, very telling, because I think first of all, obviously the fact that she has resigned and not, again, just taken another leave of absence or stepped down for her position or done any other role or just assisted Triple H in the creative content side, anything, if she didn't want to work with Vince essentially side by side in that role, right? Being the co-CEO and chairwoman, I would have imagined maybe she'll go back to the creative side and maybe not be level with Triple H, or maybe she would be like level title wise, but allow him to continue to do his thing and just kind of be, again, like not an assistant, but just kind of be there, and just kind of do whatever she was doing prior. So with her resigning, it's just, first of all, for me personally, it's kind of sad. It was very cool to have a woman in such a high position in a billion-dollar company. So the personal side of that, for me, is just, it's kind of sad to see that and again, I try not to be so, to get like the personal side of some of this shit, with this in particular, right? The sensitivity of some of these stories. I try not to let that come into play, but man, it's just really, sometimes it's just really hard, guys. And that was a lot of the reason why I kind of wanted to wait a couple days and see. And again, my best friend was here, so I wasn't going to record a podcast when she was here. Shout out Katie. But, just because she came down from Virginia, and it was a special trip, it's not like she's right around the corner. So, but I think that it's the fact that she didn't want to just step aside and she saw the best option is to just officially resign. I think that's telling. And that's what's partially the scariest for me. Why didn't she just step aside? And again, it could just be for pure personal reasons, right? It could just be she just didn't want to work with her father and she was just fed up and she was like, you know what, fuck this. I want time with my family. 8 months ago, I was on my way to vacation and then I got a phone call and then I had to come back and then all this drama and all this bullshit started, right? Or continued and intensified. So, and the fact that Vince retired and then came back and it's just not allowing them to be their positions and to be co-CEOs and to be the chairwoman. And the fact that he wouldn't allow any type of sale, or he wouldn't sign off on any type of potential sale or any type of content rights or distribution or anything like that unless he was let back in, is just sick. You know what I mean? It's just sick to me because, again, it's not like back in July he resigned or he retired rather, because he was just done and he's 77 years old and he was just ready to go sail off and do whatever billionaires do in their retirement life, right? No. Dude retired because of the sexual allegations against him and because he received legal advice that it would most likely be best for all parties involved for him to step aside, release power, and to just do his own thing. And again, I'm pretty certain I said in the grand scheme of things, especially with the severity of the allegations, and again, they are just allegations, but where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And again, we don't have details, and that's not really what I'm here to get into right now. My point is, for there to be multiple allegations, for there to be history of payouts, for there to be enough substantial evidence or, things to at least allude to certain things and certain cover-ups and hush money payments and things of that nature coming from the Wall Street Journal and reputable sources like that, for him to retire and then to come back, 6 months later, is a slap in the face. First of all, it's a slap in the face to his daughter. And even if he doesn't want to view Stephanie as his daughter, because business is business, you have to, and it's hard, but you have to keep things separate. It, just in the business sense, it's really a fuck you and a slap in the face, to her and to Nick Khan. Nick probably isn't as personally affected by it as Stephanie, I would imagine, with the whole father-daughter relationship thing, right? But again, it's still fucking around with his life and his day-to-day functions and his just everything, and of course it affects everyone. But with them specifically, it's so jarring to go from one title to the next and have certain duties and responsibilities one day and then to not have them the next day and then to have them again, and it just all the uncertainty. Like, I can't imagine the stress and just the anxiety and just all the bullshit that everyone there is dealing with on a day-to-day basis right now, like, I feel for them. And I think it's really interesting as well that in the wake of that announcement, WWE announced that the board of directors unanimously elected Vince McMahon as the board's executive chairman, when it's the same board who voted him out, you know? It's just very, very perplexing to me. And again, it just kind of ties back to the return of George Barrios and Michelle. I don't know anything about those people, and I'm not going to cast judgment one way or another, but it's just very strategic as everything, when you kind of look at everything in the grand scheme of things, and kind of from like a visual or like an aerial outlook, right? Rather, it's just very, very interesting how everything is looking and lining up. But of course, WWE did follow up with a statement regarding Stephanie's tweet and press release, I guess. They stated that WWE today announced that its board of directors unanimously elected Vince McMahon executive chairman of the board. Stephanie McMahon has resigned from her roles as chairwoman and co-CEO. Nick Khan will serve as WWE CEO. Vince McMahon stated, quote, "First, I'd like to express my full support for Stephanie's personal decision. I'll forever be grateful that she offered to step in during my absence, and I'm truly proud of the job she did co-leading WWE. Stephanie has always been the ultimate ambassador for our company, and her decades of contributions have left an immeasurable impact on our brand. I'm proud to announce that Nick Khan will serve as WWE CEO. Nick's business acumen and mastery of the media industry have helped catapult our business to record revenue and profit, or has catapult. I see what they're doing. Have catapult our business to record revenue and profitability. Together, we look forward to working with the board at this critical moment in time to review our strategic alternatives and maximize value for all WWE shareholders." Stephanie went on to say, again, "I cannot put into words how proud I am to have helped lead what I consider to be the greatest company in the world, and I'm confident WWE is in the perfect position to continue to provide unparalleled creative content and drive maximum value for our shareholders." So what is interesting right there is WWE's little snippet of Stephanie's statement there left out the whole insertion of Nick Khan specifically and Triple H in his specific role. She just, you have to, I would definitely recommend going and reading the release WWE put out, and kind of just comparing Stephanie's tweet and then to that little paragraph that they have there. That's just pretty interesting to me how they recapped that. Nick Khan did state, quote, "Stephanie McMahon is a terrific executive and an even better person. It has been an honor to serve as co-CEO with her. She will only continue to succeed. I'm grateful to Vince McMahon and our board of directors for their ongoing support. I look forward to continuing to work closely with them and my WWE colleagues to ensure our company may thrive as the premier powerhouse in sports entertainment for years to come," end quote. And then they just go on to give you the history of WWE. Yeah, guys, the Stephanie McMahon of it all, again, it's very sad, and it's very, very telling, and I think, again, it's just not a good sign to me, and it's just not a good feeling. I'm super fucking thankful we still have Triple H right now, and we need to protect Triple H in his role at all costs, right? But God, I don't know, guys. I'm scared, guys. I'm just maybe not scared, and that, that's a little strong, right? I'm just concerned, rather, with the ease that it apparently was there for Vince just to come back. And again, like, the allegations against him were pretty massive. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't just some minor infraction or anything like that, or, like, he didn't pay his taxes, which is, what happens to a lot of billionaires and things like that. It was, very specific allegations against him, and hush money payments, and things like that, and paper trails. So to see how easily he came back, again, it's just, in a lot of ways, it kind of shows you, right, that wrestling is big in the world, but it's not as big as we think it is, because I think if this was like a Disney or like, a bigger company, maybe it would be getting more and I don't say this because I want bad things to happen to WWE, but it's just really interesting that, I don't know. It's just really, and with, especially with it being a publicly traded company, like, it's not like this is his personal or his private business, right, anymore, or like this was 20 plus years ago. It's just, something just seems odd to me. And I believe there was a report out there that, maybe from Wall Street Journal, I didn't read it, so I'm not sure specifically, but I heard that there's other allegations or other things that were uncovered that haven't been brought to light. So that's a little worrisome, especially, I don't know, to me, why, if you're Vince McMahon and you're coming back and your whole idea is you want to sell the company, because, right, that's the whole idea. And if his goal wasn't to really return and sell the company, it was just smoke and mirror to make his return to the company and to just have an excuse, then that's going to create a problem. And we'll get into here in a second. He already has a shareholder filing a lawsuit against him. So that's already lighting a match. So we'll see how that ends up playing out, and if there's going to be any additional lawsuits filed against him or anything like that. Once Vince had made his announcement and WWE had made the announcement that Vince was back officially, later that day on June 6th, WWE stock had gone up in a huge way. It jumped, I believe, it was 22% from the previous day. That was the highest price since the shares had hit the all-time high back in April of 2019, where they were once at $96.71 a share. I believe on January 6th, the stock had hit $88.40, which I believe a little after that ended up, I think they peaked at around $91 and it settled back down to around $88, $89. Last time I checked, I believe it was maybe like Thursday or Friday. So with Vince making his return and pretty much forcing his way back in and stating that there's big interest in selling the business, and that's his goal, to return to make sure WWE gets the best deals possible, because essentially no one else in the company can get the best deal, right? He has to be there, he has to be involved to get it, which is just so fucking bonkers to me. But getting back to the Vince McMahon being sued of it all, there was reports stating that Vince's return to WWE's board of directors prompted a proposed class action lawsuit from one of WWE's shareholders in the state of Delaware. According to a report by Bloomberg, Vince McMahon is being sued by a shareholder named Scott A. Fellows. Per court documents, Fellows is suing McMahon for abusing his power in an effort to impose his will, quote-unquote, on WWE and its board of directors by adopting, quote, invalid and inequitable bylaw amendments that would hamstring the board from making important decisions, end quote. The filing also noted that the class action could include thousands of shareholders. The plaintiff is seeking relief, including invalidation of the bylaw changes, costs, and fees. The document states McMahon has control of approximately 81% of the company's total voting power. McMahon officially returned to the board on Friday, January 6th. In a press release, which is covered by the document, he stated that his return was to help with upcoming media rights negotiations, knowing the potential partner would be speaking with and have the support of the majority shareholder. The lawsuit makes the following statements regarding McMahon's return. In late December 2022, McMahon demanded in writing that the board invite him back to serve as executive chairman. McMahon insisted that he guide a strategic review process as executive chairman, or else he would hold the company hostage. And let me say that again just for full power and full punch of that sentence. McMahon insisted that he guide a strategic review process as executive chairman, or else he would hold the company hostage. Like, what the fuck, man? Goes on to say, he asserted that he would interfere with and withhold support or approval of any process that he did not lead. McMahon further threatened to withhold his support of any negotiation respecting WWE's expiring media rights deals. WWE's media rights are the company's lifeblood. Facts. The media right agreements were set to expire in 2024 and were slated for renegotiation in early 2023. By his written consent, McMahon seeks to hamstring the board and prevent it from undertaking significant time-sensitive decisions respecting some of the most important properties of the company, which are the media rights deals. He also leveraged that purported blocking power to get himself reappointed as executive chairman of the board. McMahon lacks the power he purported to wield. Okay. Section 141A of the Delaware General Corporation Law, in parentheses, the DGCL, recognizes the inviolability of the board of directors' power to make significant decisions respecting the business and affairs of the company. The board members have an unremitting obligation to discharge their fiduciary duties. Essentially, what they're saying is Vince McMahon is holding up WWE and preventing them from doing any type of business deals, restructuring of the company, any type of media rights deals, or even entertaining any type of sale without him being involved, which is completely negating his duty to his shareholders by providing them the most value for their stock and to do whatever is best for them to make the most money. That's the whole point of being a shareholder, right? So this is big, and especially with it being a class action lawsuit, this is really big. It goes on to state that Vince McMahon and WWE, per a recent report, has hired JP Morgan to help advise the company on a potential sale. So they already are gearing up and doing what they got to do advisement-wise, financially, in a lot of ways to get things ready for a sale. And that, of course, leads us on to our next topic here. And that was the clusterfuck that was Twitter and the wrestling news media, we'll say, on Tuesday night. Again, it started with Stephanie announcing her resignation from WWE. And then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was someone had mentioned, I listened to, Jason Solomonster. He had, Solomonster sounds off. I haven't heard the most recent episode, but because it normally drops late on Sundays, or early on Sundays rather, but they, first kind of vague tweet and shady tweet, I think was sent out by Brian Alvarez, and again, I don't follow Brian, so I didn't see it myself. Apparently stating just that there was some massive news that was about to come out, or something to that effect. But essentially, something huge was going to happen, right? And then next, I believe he mentioned that it was, I don't know the name, Cassidy Haynes, I think it was, from Body Slam, that was the first one to report that WWE was in talks, and it was almost pretty much like a done deal that WWE is being sold to Saudi Arabia, and it was essentially done. It was just waiting to be finalized. And that's kind of where all hell broke loose. And I don't know other reports or websites or anything like that reported on it also. Again, I just found that out from Solomonster because he, was the first one to kind of mention that specifically on their show he did earlier, so shout out to him. But the fact that, first of all, to me, like, my first reaction was, okay, this, even if, well, let's just go with it, right? Even if WWE is in talks with Saudi Arabia to sell the company to them, it's not going to be done overnight. It's not going to be done in a couple days. It's going to take time. Something of this magnitude and the amount of money and the transaction that is to be had with this is not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a couple days. And it's surely not going to be reported by, no offense, because a lot of times, what they report is accurate, and a lot of times, they do good work. And, things happen, things change, right? And not even just singling anyone else specifically, but you can get news and then things legit change. But something of this magnitude, I don't really know where it stemmed from, obviously, right? Or if it was just, maybe just like a kernel of truth, or it was just an idea and it just kind of snowballed after that. But the idea that happened in less than a day or like within a day or two, like, nah. And it's not going to be reported by like our favorite wrestling journalist or anything like that, like, or they're not going to be the ones who break the news, right? Or, and if so, then damn, like WWE or in wrestling isn't as even with it being $1 billion company, like it isn't as big as we thought it was, and I don't see that happening, right? WWE again is $1 billion company. Everyone knows of WWE, right? Even if you're not a wrestling fan, you know of WWE, you know of wrestling, whether you're a fan or not. A sale of WWE is going to be massive news. It's going to be broke by your Wall Street journals, your big reputable distributions and companies, right? It's just that's why I didn't jump into that hype. What I was more concerned on was mainly the resignation of Stephanie McMahon, because it's fucking sad. And if you go back and see the feedback that she got from not fellow wrestlers, but fellow employees and wrestlers and just talent, how just appreciative they were of her. It's just really telling and showing of her as a human being and as a boss. So, again, that's just another reason why it's sad that she's no longer going to be involved. But just the idea that Saudi Arabia would buy WWE, and WWE would be okay with it, right? That Vince McMahon would allow his company to be sold to Saudi Arabia. And again, I know I have a few listeners out there from Saudi Arabia. So it's nothing like all governments are fucked up, right? This is not a show to compare governments and shit like that. You know what I mean? But for me personally to think that Vince would sell WWE to a different company or a different government rather altogether when he's so pro-America, right? Like we have the tribute to the troops. When 9/11 happened, WWE was the first industry period to put on a live show. And just everything that we've gotten from them. Vince is always like America the Beautiful is and the national anthem is just, it's a big thing for each show, and especially at WrestleManias. Like it was always a big deal to see, well, not a big deal, but it was always, another touting point that WWE would have to say, oh, well, we got Aretha Franklin to sing, America the Beautiful and shit like that to open WrestleMania. So to think that he would sell being the, quote, patriot that he's been portrayed to be, and from, like, what we've heard from some wrestlers and things like that, in that respect alone would be kind of surprising to me, first of all. And then second of all, again, on a more personal level, and again, I say all that, and I know billions of dollars talk, right? But I just, when you have, I'm sure, multiple potential buyers, I think there's a lot of pros and cons, and I don't think that the pros I think the cons outweigh the pros here in a lot of regard. And I think it says a lot, too, if you're just looking for a quick cash grab. If you're looking for just a quick cash grab, then I guess. But again, you sell it. If Vince's idea is to come back and be part of the board and to, let's say, sell WWE, but he still wants to be involved, or he still wants to be head of creative, or he still wants to have some type of control, do you really think it's going to be easy to negotiate TV rights and to negotiate partnerships and ads and things like that? And do you think the marketing is really going to be that easy? Like, that in and of itself is going to be fucking almost impossible. So I don't think that's a good idea if you're still looking to be involved. Now, if you're looking to just sell completely and then wipe your hands clean, I guess that's one thing. But man, like that, I don't know. I don't see that as a real possibility. But getting back to the more personal side of it for me, like it would be sad because you think of people like Sonya Deville, right? And you think of the women's wrestlers in the women's division, the women in power in WWE in various roles, in the company and on the business side even. What would that change and what would that mean for them? And again, it would be telling the business side if it would be a matter of how they're selling the company, if it's just they're going to sell the the name, and they're gonna sell like essentially the shell of WWE, but Vince still wants to keep his team in play and to run the company, right? But again, I don't see, if you're gonna spend billions of dollars on something, regardless of how much money you have, you still want control over it, right? So I don't see someone buying the company and then still allowing Vince or whoever the team is to have control completely, right? I don't know. That would just be kind of like interesting or weird to me. I would have to like get a better understanding of that deal. Um, so, but yeah, so like the personal side with the women of obviously, and then just like your Sonya Deville's, and then of course Sami Zayn, like it's just scary. It's just a scary thought. So I get why the outrage happened. And I get why so many wrestlers would want to quit if that happened, and things like that. I don't blame you, right? But I just, again, I would be shocked if that happened. And it would be really sad, It would be really sad to think that this company that I grew up loving, and this company that really made me love wrestling and was my gateway into wrestling, and for the longest time, the only wrestling I knew. I had no idea for years until I found my first like wrestling magazine that other wrestling companies existed, right? Like, or I'm not gonna say I didn't know that they didn't exist, but like it just didn't. It was WWE or bust, right? It was just they were the end all be all. Everywhere else was just kind of like this mythical place, and that you just like I didn't even know how you became a wrestler for the longest time. I just felt like they just appeared, and like until I watched, and I know I've mentioned it before, but the DVD, the 3-disc set that WWE did on Chris Jericho, God, this was, I don't even know how long ago, like, it was Breaking the Code, I think it was titled, or something like that, like, listening to his journey, how he went from Mexico to Japan, obviously starting out in Canada, and just going from territory to territory, just building and owning his craft, it was just so fucking fascinating to me, and that really opened my eyes as well, but this isn't the show for that, but tying that into that love, right? And that passion for wrestling that we all have. And to think that WWE could be sold to just could be sold to a government like Saudi Arabia. It's just kind of sad and kind of scary, you know what I mean? And again, no government is perfect, but like, I mean, there's obviously different levels and different extremes that some have gone to than others. So we'll just kind of leave it at that for now, because again, this isn't what this show is focused on right now. But that's really why I didn't really buy into the hype there. Like, my first thought was like, oh man, that'd be really sad, but like, I don't buy that at all. And again, I highly doubt that a story of that magnitude is not going to be broke by my favorite wrestling journalists. No offense to any of them out there, because I respect what y'all do, and I'd love to be in y'all's position one day, and reporting facts, not all of you guys do, some of you guys are shady fucks and just do shit for clickbait, but the respectable ones out there. I just, I don't see that happening. Moving on after that, before getting to that, this story, and I will say I can understand why people kind of freak the fuck out, because even Yahoo reported on it, and I found that fascinating. So Yahoo's report is again pretty interesting, so I'll just read off of it. They released this on January 12th, on Thursday, so a couple days later. They stated shortly after Stephanie McMahon announced she would be stepping down as CEO following her disgraced father Vince McMahon's return to World Wrestling Entertainment as executive chairman of the board, the world's largest professional wrestling company is in the process of being sold to the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund. Quote, PIF. For those unfamiliar, the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Saudi Arabia has a major investment in Formula One, started the LIV Golf Professional Golf Tour, and initiated a takeover of the Premier League's Newcastle United club. Despite the reports, the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund's purchase of the WWE is not final just yet. As a publicly traded company, the WWE must deliver SEC filings and share a public offer price for shareholders before word of the PIF stepping up, which again is the Public Investment Fund, stepping up as the leading party to purchase the company. The sale of WWE was rumored to be going to Comcast, Disney, UFC parent company, Endeavor Group Holdings, and more. Ultimately, the sale of the WWE to the PIF will need to go through months of development before being finalized. So there you go. And again, Ariel Helwani did report saying, contrary to reports stating otherwise last night, there is no deal in place at this precise moment for WWE to be sold to Saudi Arabia's public investment fund or in any entity. And then he goes on to say, worth noting that the original tweet stating it was a done deal has since been deleted. So there you go, guys. To me personally, though, I think if I had to choose the best purchaser of WWE, and if you would have asked me this 6 months ago, a year ago, I would have been like, I absolutely not. Or not absolutely not, but I've been like, no. Would be Disney. And I say that for multiple reasons, right? And it's to me, that would have been, and I remember myself saying that I would be like one of the last people I would want would be Disney to purchase WWE, because I don't know if they would take them seriously. I don't want it to just be like a kids thing, it was just scary for me in that regard, because I don't want WWE and wrestling to become a joke. But when you really break it down, that could be the best option. Of course, I was gonna say you could go to like the UFC parent company, Endeavor, but to me, it's just too vastly different, and I think it's just not a good fit. Obviously, with Comcast or Fox and things like that, like that would be a good idea, because you have like the built-in TV right there. But with Disney, you have a lot of benefits as well. Obviously, Disney has the location in Orlando, right? WWE's Performance Center is about 25 minutes from there, maybe, if that. Of course, depending on traffic. But with that, you have the link right there, and if you're wanting to possibly merge and just have location biasy and location ease, I mean that right there is pretty big. Not saying that the headquarters be created or anything like that, but I mean that's an ease, right? An ease transition right there. You could, with the land that Disney owns, you could also eventually have like a permanent thing, like a Hall of Fame, like a permanent structure there. Like there's just so many different things you could do. Like with the whole entertainment aspect of it, you could have like specific amusement rides. You can have like certain portions of the park dedicated to WWE. You can have like different interactive things. So I think the marketability of it, I think, would be huge, and just the return of the investment that you can get off of that eventually, like it probably take no time, maybe 5 years, 10 years, maybe, depending on how much you put into it and how much you develop it right off the bat. But man, like and with that, of course, and then you have the Disney name. Like it's gonna be very or much easier for someone like Disney to go into TV negotiations with like your Fox and things like that. So I think there's just a lot of pros with Disney than cons, and not con, KHAN, in that respect. But speaking of cons, KHAN, it was rumored that Tony Khan and his father were interested parties in purchasing WWE and possibly merging AEW and WWE together, which I think would be not a good idea. Long story short, I think it would be fucking fascinating. I think it would be possibly, for the wrestling aspect, a good idea, but then again, I don't think it's a good idea, because then you're literally just monopolizing. Again, you're just taking what WWE did for the past 20 years and just flipping it over to a different billionaire monopolizing WWE. And again, Tony Khan is probably a much better billionaire, most likely. I'll just go ahead and say he is a better billionaire than Vince, morally, it seems. And just interacting with Tony Khan the 2 minutes that I did, he just seemed like just a genuine and good dude. And every show that I've been to, he just gives off good vibes, right? And obviously he's not perfect, no one is. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know who he is, but just the feeling that you get being at the shows, how much he really appreciates you being there. I don't know. It just says a lot. So I think morally that would be probably the best idea for WWE if you're really going to sell it to someone. But I don't think wrestling wise and for the industry as a whole, rather, that would be the best idea, because it's again, you're just taking one monopoly and just shifting it over to a different side. Because if you think about it, then it would be WWE, AEW, and ROH all being owned by the same man and the same family. So to me, it's just too much. Keep things simple. And keep things separate. And by simple, I mean separate. So I don't know. It's really intriguing. And again, I would feel much better with that than other options for sure. But man, I don't want things to get watered down. Tony Khan already has a shit ton of things on his plate right now. Dude has multiple plates that he's carrying at this point. And shout out to the Jags who just completed that triumphant return. Fucking insane. I think they were down with 27-0 and then turned it around the second half. So just shout out to them. I didn't see the whole game, but I caught like a little chunk here and there of the second half, so just incredible. But yeah, with the whole buying of WWE and the potential suitors, to me, as crazy as it sounds, I think right now I would put Disney as my favorite. If you are going to sell, and it's going to be outside of the McMahon family. And in that regard, I mean, not going from Vince to Stephanie, if you're just going to, completely go outside, then I guess, yeah, it would be WWE. It would be Disney, rather. I don't really want to see AEW purchase WWE. I want them to keep things separate. I want AEW to thrive on its own. I want them to become the best wrestling company that they can be. And who knows, potentially maybe take over as the number one wrestling company in the world. That would be fucking dope, but I would then want WWE to be number two. I don't want them to be all in one entity. So, with that being said, guys, we went over a lot of bullshit here today, a lot of news, a lot of things happening in the wrestling world. I appreciate you so much for downloading, listening to the show, and just being so supportive. I appreciate you all for listening and checking us out on the YouTube channel. This is going to be a good year for the show. I know I've been talking about a lot, but I have been doing a lot of research lately, and I've been talking to a good friend of mine about some graphic work and things like that. So hopefully some things and some cool things to look forward to on the horizon. But thank you guys again. I hope you have a great night. Stay safe out there, and until next time.